Hello viewers, my name is Adam.
No, I'm Aaron.
This is Sticky Media Productions, bring you another ranking video.
So, it's about time we got down to business and actually took a stab at the Marvel's
most popular hero.
Definitely most popular hero.
Like who rivals Batman in terms of merchandise.
Honestly, he really does. And you know what? We gotta go ahead and do it. We're talking about Spider-Man.
Yes, it's been very sparse on this channel with very little Spider-Man related content, with my own review for the Spider-Man PS4 video game, plus Miles Morales.
And let's be honest, there's been a reason for that. And the reason mainly was that, I mean, when Spider-Man movies were first coming out,
YouTube didn't exist.
Exactly. At least not to the extent that, you know, it is today. And then when the other movies were coming out,
this channel didn't exist.
Exactly. So, I mean,
yeah,
cut us a break on that one.
This video will be solely ranking on all the live-action Spider-Man films up until now, but we are only focusing on the Spider-Man films, not the Spider-Verse related films.
Just straight Spider-Man flicks where Spider-Man is the lead.
Yes. And different from the past two ranking videos that we did for the Marvel and DC videos, we're going to be starting off from the best films to what is considered the worst. And from right now, from the movie, you can probably guess where we might land from either end of the spectrum when we make this list. But,
it's not that hard.
But there will be some surprises. At
the very top, the best of the best, the creme de la creme, we have to go ahead and tip our hats to Spider-Man 2.
Yes, of the three Spider-Man directors, Sam Raimi is, of course, the most strongest of when it comes to his visionary.
His craft is all over the place, and it works.
Yes, you can clearly tell that his stamp onto each of his films in his trilogy really benefited from the zany campiness style that for some reason, despite how it is, with some dodgy effects, overall his style works.
It works, but there's other things. Like, there's a real sense of heart that really emanates throughout his particular portrayal of the wall crawler.
So McGuire, he basically lead throughout his trilogy.
Yep.
And for Spider-Man 2, there's a lot of maturity into it. It also helps where it is inspired by a classic Spider-Man story, Spider-Man No More. Spider-Man No More. Yeah, what most people consider one of the best cinematic villains of all time.
Yeah, Dr. Otto's Octavius's range in this one is like, wow.
Yeah, even with his version of Doc Ock, well, Sam Raimi, who is known for doing horror films at the time, he was able to make a good short sequence that's dedicated, like, oh my God.
That is probably one of my favorite sequences in a horror, in a hero flick that ever. I really do love that what they did with Doc Ock in that operation scene. It's you have to watch it. If you have not watched it, I can't understand for life.
Yeah, people tend to always talk about this train fight.
Yeah, the train. Don't get me wrong, that's a cool sequence.
But I feel as though that was the one that really helped differentiate Sam Raimi's version to all the other Spider-Man versions going down.
Exactly.
But we're still going on Sam Raimi's trip, as we're also next on the stop on this list is the first Spider-Man movie.
I mean, how do you not love Will Dafoe as the Goblin? I'm sorry. He was like, come on. Even though he was always at 11, I was with him.
Yeah. Of course, like, we bring back up Tobey Maguire. This is very much like Spider-Man as the origin story of Spider-Man's life. Like, even like people, there's a debate on whether Blade was the one who helped
Blade is it.
And Blade definitely got it moving. And then a little after Blade, it was the Bryan Singer's X-Men. They were like, okay, and they're like it was mixed feelings on that, but still X-Men still maintain momentum. But Spider-Man is easily the one that was the defining
that solidified that we can actually have big budgeted superhero flicks that everybody could get something out of.
Yes, and it also helps that Tobey Maguire, whose version of it, he never he brought a lot of heart to it and like earnestness, because he's portraying a lot more of the nerdy aspects to the Peter Parker's role.
A lot of cringe.
But the reason why the Sam Raimi movies overall, to me, like, has never been amazing is because his Peter Parker and Spider-Man are totally still very much the same. There's not much of a duality to them.
That's so true.
That's important to the early years of Spider-Man.
They're supposed, just like with any superhero that has a secret identity or alternate persona, you want to see the distinctions between that hero persona and their average and their non-hero persona. Peter Parker is the nerd. He's the
nerd. He's the person who he's the actual embodiment of the person who you actually do see the struggles of his everyday life.
Yeah, the average dude that everybody has, some form of a ties to. Whereas Spider-Man is a heroic, confident, wisecracking, crime fighter.
He's the escape. For the most part, he acted like the escape of Peter Parker's mundane life.
And you don't get that in the Sam Raimi's version, where there is no real escapism when it's always that breaking responsibility. Which, yes, that has to be there, and he does a brilliant job of portraying that, of putting that in the series. But he did lose the concept of Peter Parker being able to be freely all of who he's supposed to be and where he wishes he could be in the persona of Spider-Man.
Something that in our next film down the list is that Andrew Garfield was able to do well from all three Spider-Mans, and his first film, The Amazing Spider-Man, directed by Mark Webb. The Amazing Spider-Man, to me, is underrated.
Oh yeah, I actually hands down agree with that.
Mainly due to the grounded take that they decided to go with. Andrew Garfield, thankfully, is being a lot more praised now for his
People
performance.
are finally appreciating what he was bringing to that performance. And I have always stand by Andrew Garfield's persona and portrayal of the wall crawler, because to me, he truly embodied what it really means to be Spider-Man.
And also the struggles of Peter Parker. That duality, at least in his early years, is very prevalent.
Very much so.
The reason why it's down, a little bit downer on the list, is because it's not as high as up, because it is still it kind of just is a rehash of his origin story.
It is,
and they didn't lean into what was actually supposed to be marketed in this film as I remember it was the untold story of Peter Parker.
And there was a missed opportunity there. Now they tried to pick it back up later down the road, and they do sprinkle bits and pieces in this movie of what else was revolved around Peter Parker's life and what really went into the disappearance of his parents and death. And I would have actually wanted to go harder on that concept and actually explore it even more in depth.
But we got a very, very edited, streamlined, basic origin story that's they'll elevate with some nice good performances, with Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy.
Loved her.
The actor who played her father. Obviously, was it Captain Stacy?
Captain Stacy.
Captain Stacy played got his name. The actor, he's respected. Right? I think Rescue Me was.
Yeah, he was really big on that show.
But with though Ray Fiennes did play an admirable Dr. Connors, went straight from three-dimensional to two-dimensional villain real quick.
Yeah,
with the lizard.
Yeah, it did, and I can understand where that would have been really hard to portray, a more complex beast monster hybrid villain in that respects. But at the same time, it was this is the big game, so you need to put every right foot forward. And even though I appreciate the lizard, and to be honest with you, it's amazing we even got the lizard in this film at all and brought to the silver screen. There more could have been done to be actually make him more of a formidable, hierarchy in this in the Spider-Man's pantheon. But it is what it is. I still enjoyed the movie. It is where it is on our line.
Our next movie down on the list on the best two worst Spider-Man movies is the Spider-Man 3, the last of the Sam Raimi trilogy. I
feel as though this one is what has not been said or what has been said with this particular outing in the Spider-Man trilogy that Sam Raimi made. Look, it was overcrowded. That's first and foremost. There was way too much going on in there, and there was storylines that was like mixed into here that probably should have waited for another film, but they didn't.
Like you can definitely see that meddling going on. Forced inclusions into the film with a fan favorite villain in it, but that was obviously wasted. Because mainly the fact that, of course, when we started knowing behind the scenes, Sam Raimi didn't want the Venom in his movie in the first place, but it shows. But why do we rank this where it is at? Well, for starters, Sam Raimi's vision and style still remains prevalent in this film. The man wants you to realize this is his show, and it shows. Clearly enough, the movie only focused on the main villain, which it was clearly was with the Sandman. Thomas Church definitely he embodied that the best part of this film. He truly embodied what that character was supposed to be, and and how they were really going to emphasize it on the screen, and I was there for it. But now we go into the next 3 installments in this ranking, going down the list, and each of the 3 ones inspired in the MCU's version, or what we're going to talk about, in order of how we like them. Yeah. And overall, from the so far the MCU trilogy, No Way Home is the best one of the trilogy based on our standing, but from a very slim margin. If you're not changed to this channel, when we are able to talk about Tom Holland's and John Watts' Spider-Man trilogy in MCU, we do have some very harsh criticisms to it. Yeah. Mainly because of the fact that it's not necessarily these films are not Spider-Man films to the point in which they're more like Spider-Boy trilogy. Spider-Boy in the background trying to showcase what he's able to do, but never quite actually doing it. Yeah, they're very much in the reverse of what traditionally is Peter Parker's story, i.e., a boy who was given privilege but learns who loses it and has to cope with it. And I'm just not down with that. I feel as though that completely strips away what Spider-Man is and who he's supposed to represent. I mean, he doesn't. Very much in John Watts' Spider-Man series, it really did feel as though the world was on Peter Parker's plate. He had everything. Barely any consequences are given to him until the very last minute of this trilogy. Exactly. And it's like you have to really realize what makes Spider-Man stories work in the first place. And so much of the series was almost reactionary. With No Way Home, why is this ranked on this? Because yes, it is finally Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man finally gets his comeuppance. It starts grabbing home into that harsh balance of his real life and the Spider-Man situations. Though he brought himself into this mix with his help of Doctor Strange, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, who is always a highlight. But why is this movie's success is based mainly on nostalgia? Look, not much of his own merits. Yeah, that's my biggest issue right there off the bat. Okay, cool. Yes, you're bringing in fan favorites. You're talking about concepts of Spider-Man's cinematic history. It's being brought back on the silver screen once again for everybody to enjoy and see. But when you strip all that stuff away and you leave what was only brought towards the franchise in the MCU, there's not a lot there that qualifies this particular iteration existing. And that's a big issue, a huge problem that really could have been corrected if somebody took the time and the energy to really sit down and say, what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man? The next movie on the list, Spider-Man: Homecoming, the first main film where Tom Holland's Peter Parker's the solo act. Not really, because it was a supporting actor of Iron Man. This movie is very stripped down scale wise. it's like it's almost as if this film could have Spider-Man and the MCU actually could have benefited as more of a television series.
Yeah.
If the Disney Plus was actually a thing, because of how small a scope this movie is.
It was so small.
And to its benefit, this movie does have one of the best MCU villains.
Yeah.
Which is from the form of Michael Keaton's Vulture, which is a a complete reimagining of the character. But John Watts' take on Spider-Man is that it was the approach of if John Hughes were to make a superhero movie. And
I feel so right there and off the bat, that's probably the worst thing you could have done. You should not be looking towards what another director would have done if they had your opportunity to do the franchise. You need to do it from your perspective of what you would do with the franchise.
And Far From Home, which if due credit is due, yet again they do bring off a nice good MCU villain's interpretation of Mysterio, a villain who was like surprisingly well adapted. That interpretation of Mysterio is not enough to save a film that makes no sense in part.
It really don't.
You have why I don't like Far From Home as my least part of the MCU Spider-Man trilogy is because the relationship with MJ's and Peter comes out of nowhere.
It's so forced. It's just like we need him to have a love interest. We got rid of the original one we was going to try and go with, and now we're trying to put this one together, and I'm like, it doesn't work.
It's like a rehash of the responsibility storyline that he had with the Homecoming, and now with this one, it's like, didn't you already learn your lesson? No, you did not.
No, he never learns a lesson in these films.
Until the very last minute. And to finish it off with this ranking list, we're going unanimously, if you already know, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the worst Spider-Man movie as of right now.
Yeah, talk about overbloated. That one it was doing way too much at one time, and it just no.
Like Andrew Garfield, we still stick to the fact that he is technically the best interpretation of Peter Parker and Spider-Man in our opinion. But his performance is completely sidelined with a lot of subplots, a lot of obvious studio mandling of trying to include and force a cinematic universe of Spider-Man films.
You never try and force and put all your chickens in one basket. You need to allow quality to be the reason for what is going to steadily make your foundation. And this one was just doing too much at one point. As always, guys, if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Please hit that bell down there at the bottom for notifications. We want to hear from you. What's your favorite Spider-Man series or movie?
But who's your best Spider-Man portrayal overall? Also, be on the lookout for other social media reviews that we have been doing. Our latest social media review is Marvel's The Eternals.
Yeah, that's
Marvel's Eternals.
Yeah, Marvel's Eternals. Yeah.
A movie that, again, the reason why we do social media reviews is because there's a lot that can happen on, and we want to still get off, we want to still show off, say what we want in these written reviews on Twitter and Instagram.
So please give it a watch.
My name is Adam.
And I'm Aaron.
And this is a Sticky Media Productions.
See you guys later.